Hello, welcome to Peninsula 24. I'm your host, Kim Han-kwon.
Peninsula 24 is Ari랑TV's newly launched discussion program, which talks about the pending diplomatic and security issues surrounding the Korean Peninsula. Tensions have risen in the Korean Peninsula amid the strengthened nuclear threats from North Korea. And together with the experts from a variety of fields, Peninsula 24 will take an in-depth look at the current state of the national security and find ways to enhance cooperation with the international community for the denuclearization of the North. And today, on the first discussion of Peninsula 24, we will discuss the current dynamics of the Korean Peninsula along with the rising nuclear threats from North Korea.
We are joined by, first, Professor Park Hwee-rhak, Dean of Graduate School of the Politics and Leadership at Kookmin University, who is an expert in the field of military and security. And a political commentator, Tae-woo, who is a research professor at the Institute of Sustainable Development at Korea University. And Kwang-jin, research fellow at the Institute for National Security Strategy. Dynamics of the Korean Peninsula have been fluctuating after North Koreans carried out its fifth nuclear test. What do you think is the most significant changes in the field of diplomacy?
I think it may be the returning to the Cold War era confrontation between two groups. Northern group, as you know, North Korea, China, and Russia. A southern group is South Korea, United States, and Japan. Even though that there's no kind of armed clashes between two groups, I think that the divide line is getting clearer and clearer. So if we cannot stop the kind of enhancement of North Korean nuclear capabilities, there may be some kind of clash between two groups. Mm-hmm. So the situation itself is very serious, and we need to make our every effort to prevent the realization of the Cold War confrontation.
Mm-hmm. And on October 18th, the government and the ruling Saenuri Party have agreed to speed up the establishment of the triad defense system in the country. The system will be in place by the early 2020s, which is about 2 or 3 years faster than it was originally planned.
북한의 핵 위협은 턱 밑에 비수와 같아서 긴급하게 해결하지를 않으면 언젠가는 반드시 양국 국민들에게 큰 피해를 주게 될 것입니다.
First of all, please elaborate more on this triad defense system.
So I think that the world community may be very familiar with the U.S. triad. Mm-hmm. At first, U.S. used it as a strategic bomber and submarine-launched ballistic missile and ICBM. And they tried to strengthen those three elements for the deterrence against Soviet nuclear threat. Recently, kind of in Bush administration, early 20th century, they changed it into the another triad. Mm-hmm. They said that the three group becomes the offensive element, and they added one defensive element and infrastructure to develop technologies to deal with the potential threat. And our Korean society tried to learn that example, and we kind of made three other elements. One is the preemptive strike capabilities, mm-hmm. I think you know as the mm-hmm. Q-chain. Right. And the second one is ballistic missile defense capabilities, and we call it KAMD. Right. And third one is newly included. One is Korea massive punishment and retaliation. So we are going to deal with North Korean nuclear threat by using these three elements. So I think that our Ministry of National Defense made a plan, and the ruling party said that because of the quick, rapid strengthening of North Korean nuclear weapons, we need to expedite the realization of that three elements.
And my next question goes to Mr. Kim. Some of the experts have said that North Korea is presumed to be capable of building up to 79 nuclear devices by the end of the 2020s. Do you think the suggested triad defense system can catch up with the developing nuclear capability of the North?
Actually, we are trying our best, but I don't think it is 100% perfect for North Korea's nuclear threats. The kill chain is to have preemptive attack to North Korean targets if there is the danger of having a nuclear attack from North Korea. It should be based on perfect warning system, and we need to locate all targets, and also we need to build the capability to destroy all the threats of nuclear North Korea's nuclear power. And I don't think it is really achievable at the moment. And the second one is the defense system. If there is an attack from North Korea, we need to check all missiles and targets, and we need to destroy them all. But the threat from North Korea is very diverse. They can carry nuclear warheads on Scud missile and also ILBM. They already tried to change the angle and then to shorten the distance of this ILBM, right, so that it can also target some our locations and targets. So are we ready to destroy all these blitz and missiles? And there is another problem. And the third one is retaliation, massive retaliation. And are we really 100% perfect on the information where Kim Jong-un is and whether we can kill him with our capability? So I think we should try our best and be 100% for all North Korea's threats.
Right. Nuclear armament theory has created a lot of controversies in the field of politics in Korea. Mm-hmm. According to the theory, Korea model of the kill chain strike system and the KAMD might have a limit when it comes to the country's nuclear defense capability. In that sense, we should also arm ourselves with nuclear weapons in order to maintain a balance of terror. What are the possible difficulties that we might face?
As we all understand, Donald Trump, he mentioned in the past, sometime remarks on the Korean questions that the possibility of the withdrawal of the U.S. nuclear umbrellas during his campaign. It means that even though the nuclear armament, theory and reality on the Korean Peninsula create a lot of problems, it is quite doubtful whether U.S. strong commitment to the security of the Korean Peninsula will be implemented, as they promised us, because we have witnessed how Vietnamese people were communized in the past. The United States, Washington did not keep the promise to send American forces back to the Vietnamese region when the communist Vietnamese forces, invaded again there. So I know that if we really goes to nuclear armament, a lot of checking powers, checking and responses from the Russia, even from the United States, from China, and a danger of getting out of an NPT, nuclear non-proliferation treaty, means that economically we will be sanctioned, by the international community, something like that. Nevertheless, I think, if the strong commitment by the United States to the security of the Korean Peninsula is not well guaranteed again, then this is a hot potato to be discussed, again and again. And I think, if politicians do not raise these kind of issues continuously, because North Korea is estimated to possess almost 20 nuclear weapons, and it is going to be increased to almost 100 in the year 2020. It means that our national defense capability will be weakened and weakened. Even though there are some problems, we have to talk about this. Pressuring China, Russia, United States, Japan to put more pressure on North Korean regimes to denuclearize on the Korean Peninsula, I think.
If the ultimate goal is achieving the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, persuading the North Korean leadership should have been placed at the top priority. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the policy toward North Korea?
Actually, in the past, since early 1990s, the world international community tried many things to persuade, not only persuade North Korean regime, but also to have a deal. We have already Geneva Agreement, and also we are now having this, all sanctions. So we tried in many ways to let them, give up nuclear weapons, but we failed. It's because they are so much determined to finish, to complete their nuclear, ambition, and also they take it as a life and death problem for the survival of the regime. So I think we need to approach in different way. We need to find new, means and ways to not only to persuade North Korean regime, but also to sanction them to give up, their nuclear ambition.
Right. Professor Park Tae-woo, how do you think on the same questions? What is the biggest challenge on our policy toward North Korea?
Well, we have tried every means possible in the past almost 20 years to block North Korean regime developing further nuclear weapons. But right now we see fifth nuclear test, and according to intelligence from North Korean sources that they are going to test more, sixth and seventh probably within 1 year. It means that our nuclear policy toward North Korea has failed completely, and also international community, even though United Nations Security Council produced a lot of resolutions, including 2270 in the latest, it has not worked effectively to deter from further developing there. So my understanding on North Korean regime is that as far as North Korean regime want to sustain dictatorship there, not following the line of open-door policies of Chinese-style collective leadership, it is natural that they will stick to nuclear weapons in the future further and further. So I emphasized several times by writings and in the TV debates that actually when North Korean regime collapses, the nuclear issues will be ended, something like that. But international communities are talking about diplomatic negotiations and diplomatic persuasion, something like that. It is true that simultaneous interpretation of how the pressures and the diplomatic negotiations are necessary, but after fifth nuclear test, I think our government must have more hardline policies to North Korea and urging, especially Chinese Communist Party and Washington, to more and more harsh pressures, even blocking international financial transactions and even banning export, livelihood purposes, minerals from North Korea, so that they will be suffering more and more. Otherwise, they are going to the sixth nuclear test, seventh nuclear test. This is a serious challenge, I think, to us.
Mr. Kim, Seoul and Washington have both mentioned the possibility of a preemptive strike on Pyongyang, which has sparked a strong condemnation from Pyongyang.
이제 북한은 더 이상 핵 포기를 위한 대화의 장에 나오지 않을 것이며 핵과 미사일 등의 도발은 더욱 심화될 것이라고 생각합니다.
How do you see the actual possibility of a preemptive strike on Pyongyang from Seoul and Washington? What do you think is the hidden intention behind the statement?
Actually, North Korea's nuclear threat is becoming more imminent and dangerous. And they are now changing the strategic, map of security in this region. And we are facing the real threat from North Korea. So I think with their more provocations and threatening the other party, our government and also United States, they are also heightening their reactions towards North Korea's provocations. And in that sense, they mentioned about the possibility of preemptive strike. And it's a different issue, whether it will be successful or whether we can, do that kind of, preemptive strike. It should be based on the right, correct information of North Korea's, of the imminent breakout of war from North Korea. And also it should be perfect in destroying all nuclear targets and dangers there. So if we miss one or two, it will be disastrous. So it's not easy to, of course, talking about it is possible, but it's not easy to put it in action actually. And if we are not perfect, we are not 100% perfect, it means that we are calling a war. And also there is another aspect that North Koreans are saying that they also have the right to do this preemptive strike. So if we give wrong signal, I think North Koreans will really act first. So this is a bit wrong aspect of this kind of discussion.
I think North Korea's strategy of nuclear development further is to induce international community to make South Korea to agree to bilateral peace agreement between Washington and Pyongyang, something like that. So we must understand that this kind of structural framework of nuclear development, the purpose is something like that. And as you see, we have, I think, a lot of limitations when we are going to preemptive strikes, using KAMD, kill chain, and as Professor Park mentions, Korean massive punishment and retaliation program, something like that. Rather, we do need a preventive measures, I think, not preemptive strike, something like that. Preventive measures to guarantee the safety of our people 100%. So I think preemptive strikes, prevention system is not 100% a perfect system to the safety of Korean people. Rather, we have to propose to the Washington that the cases of NATO's nuclear sharing agreement, something like that. And NATO has a mechanism of nuclear weapons shared by all the members, and the fighters could use that nuclear weapon when something happens there. So we could raise these kind of issues continuously, along with nuclear armament theory. I think then we can guarantee safety of our people more, I think.
Well, let me add one explanation about the preemptive strike. Preemptive strike should be conducted. There is two meanings, narrow meaning and wider meaning. Narrow meaning is that the preemptive strike is the strike which should be conducted based on the clear evidence that enemy attack is imminent. That means if we do not preemptively destroy the North Korean nuclear weapons, North Korea will attack us. It is inevitable. So before the third nuclear test in February 2013, our then Chiefs of Joint Staff said that this is necessary, so we developed the kill chain concept. And in a wider kind of meaning, preemptive strike, there is as he said, there's a preventive one. That means we can destroy the North Korean nuclear weapons, even though there is no clear evidence of imminent attack. That means that we see that if we do not act right now, we cannot defend our country because North Korea could develop more than 100 nuclear weapons or 200 nuclear weapons. So preemptive strike, in a narrow meaning, should be allowed and should be guaranteed. As Professor Park said, we also need to consider the options, how to destroy all the North Korean nuclear weapons before we may be helpless in a situation. So I think that we need to put all options on the table. We should not exclude any options in order to protect our people from the North Korean nuclear threat.
On October 19th, North Korea threatened to destroy Seoul and the presidential office, Cheongwade. If there is any sign of a preemptive strike by Washington and Seoul against Pyongyang, how are the experts viewing such threat from the North?
I am thinking about the Europe before the World War II. Hitler threatened Europe to conduct the war if they do not allow the movement of their forces into the Rhineland. And Great Britain and France allowed. And Hitler also demanded the division of Czech Republic to European countries and to Germany. And Great Kingdom and France agreed. So right now, I think that North Korea started to threaten South Korea to influence and to change our policy to their advantage. We have heard that in the late 20th centuries, our government asked whether we should say yes or no to the humanitarian resolutions in the UN. I think just like that, North Korea started to threaten us to change our policy. So I think that our people should see it as a beginning of nuclear war. A nuclear war ends by the use of nuclear weapons, but the war starts with threat. So I think that if we consider it one factor to be influenced, I think that North Korea continue this kind of threat, and we will be blackmailed by the North Korea. I think it is a very serious situation and threat.
I think this kind of threat from North Korea, all the time, threatening our people, is partially based on the political divisions of Korean society. That is the South conflict, Nam-Nam galting, something like that. If our political circle and people are united against North Korean threat, probably they could not utilize this kind of threat concept to achieve their political goals. So I think politicians, especially thinking of national interest, must bear this in mind when they make remarks regarding North Korea in the future.
Mr. Kim, North Korea leader Kim Jong-un didn't show up on October 10th, the foundation day of Workers' Party of Korea, and the anniversary has passed without any military provocations. And on October 18th, Kim Jong-un made his first public appearance after hiatus of 11 days. Does it mean that North Korea decided to take some time off? What do you think is the biggest reason for such a long period of absence?
Actually, the interval, the term of the nuclear test, the pattern has changed already. In the past, in 3 or 4 years, they tried this test, but now, this year, within 8 months, they tested another one. But I think 30 days is not a long period, so they've already did the 5th test, nuclear test, on September 9. And October 10 is the founding day of the party. Of course, it's important, but I don't think it's long enough for them to have another test. So it's short period, I think. The stranger thing is that Kim Jong-un didn't appear at his predecessor's tomb Kumsusang, Memorial Palace. Every important holiday or important day, he visited there, but this time he didn't, because I think because of the threat from the outside against him, physical threat, preemptive threat. Even the American high-level official, said about his death. Of course, they can have the capability to hit, U.S. soil with nuclear weapons, but immediately, or on that, moment, he'll be dead, something like that, So maybe North Koreans are very much on alert to protect Kim Jong-un, from such kind of threat from outside.
North Korea has faced mounting economic difficulties caused by a disastrous flood and an increasing number of North Korean elite who have defected from the North. Considering those situations, I guess the continuing nuclear test might trigger bigger side effects. What is the take on this?
I think this time after fifth nuclear test, North Korea has achieved a domestic political goal of uniting their people through political propaganda and creating security vulnerabilities perception among North Korean people there. But in the international community, more harsher sanctions are to be imposed. And even this time, China and the United States are more united in creating more harsher sanctions against Pyongyang, I think. And this time, as I mentioned, banning the North Korean labor export or restricting the North textile exports to China, even suspending fuel provision to the North Korean territories, and as I told you, removing the livelihood purposes exemption from the ban on the North mineral export, something like that. So it means that economically, the people there, out of 25 million North Koreans, 23 million pure North Koreans suffering more and more, even though psychologically they are more united, economically more and more suffering, something like that. So even though they partially achieved political propaganda purposes, but internationally, their image has been much more worsened, and more harsh economic sanctions will make the regime much more vulnerable to collapse in the future, I think.
Korea, as well as the global society, have strengthened the military, economic, and diplomatic sanctions against North Korea over a month, which might be a strong pressure on North Korea. What kind of sanctions do you think have been the strongest hit on the North Korean regime, and what's the reason?
Actually, it's still not enough, but it's giving impact to North Korean regime and also their nuclear program. Our government, stopped Kaesong industrial complex, and it is our cost actually. And because of that, around $100 million stopped. The flow of that amount, has stopped. And also, many defectors are coming to Seoul, including the elite. In the past, we couldn't see such things happen. In group, they're coming, and some important people with very important backgrounds and jobs, they're coming too, to Seoul. So we are seeing now the result of our sanctions. And we need more sanctions. We need to find more ways and means, to pressure North Korea, stop, them to sending, workers to outside, and the slavery, work there, exploitation, all this stuff, should be taken care by the international community. And also human rights issue. We need pay more attention to this issue. And also another one is, we need to try our best to bring more defectors from North Korea. And these stuff, are the things that we can do, the outside world can do, with regard to North Korea's nuclear sanction.
North Korea's fifth nuclear test had a higher yield or explosive power. The explosion of at least twice as powerful as the previous test. and it is about 10 times stronger than the first nuclear test of the North. North Korea has emphasized its developed technology of mounting nuclear warheads on ballistic rockets when announcing the fifth nuclear test.
핵탄두가 표준화 규격화됨으로써 우리는 고형화, 경량화, 다종화된 보다 타격력이 높은 각종 핵탄두들을 마음먹은 대로 필요한 만큼 생산할 수 있게 되었으며
Does it also mean that the North can now mass produce a few types of standardized warhead of higher strike power? What is your outlook for the nuclear weapon development in North Korea, and what do you think would be the next step of the North Korea?
I think that we should remember that after the fifth test, North Korea said that they succeeded to identify, to make sure the powers of that nuclear warhead, and they also said that they succeeded to standardize and to make same size for all the various missiles. So I think that they succeeded to make a nuclear warheads in order to mount to the various missiles. And so I think that North Korea would try to develop ICBM first, because they want to decouple United States and South Korea. So the way to decoupling is to threaten United States. So as we witnessed that they tested the strong engines, powerful engines. So they said it's 80-ton force. So I think that they will, in the near future, test another long-range missiles with the name of the satellite. And secondly, I think that North Korea would expect to build their submarines, which could carry the SLBMs to the mainland United States. There's some kind of report that North Korea may be in the construction process for the 3,000 tons of submarine. So if they succeed to make submarine, they would threaten the United States to attack Seattle or Los Angeles. So I think that North Korea succeed to have nuclear capabilities to attack South Korea already. So North Korea is going to focus on having the capabilities to attack the United States with its nuclear weapons.
India and Pakistan are the countries that have also carried out nuclear tests over 5 times. What is the similarity and differences from those India and Pakistan conducted nuclear tests from that of North Korea?
I did not study much on the nuclear development histories of Pakistan and India, but the difference is very clear, as I told you before. North Korea is not to kind of make a balance with its neighbors with nuclear weapons. North Korea's purpose is to unify Korean Peninsula by threatening or use of nuclear weapons. So they try to expedite the tests and the development of nuclear weapons more than the Pakistani and Indian process. I think that North Korea learned the technology on the nuclear weapons from I think Dr. Khan in Pakistan. I think they resemble more the Pakistani process than India. But anyhow, I think that North Korea succeeded, and right now I think there may be not kind of similarities on the North Korean further nuclear processes. They want to have more nuclear warheads, enough to make nuclear forces withdraw from Korean Peninsula and to unify Korean Peninsula.
even though North Korea has tried to be recognized itself as a country of nuclear weapons, international community has not recognized it, and in the future will never ever recognize North Korea as a state of nuclear weapons. This is a basic difference between Pakistan and Indian model. United States led international recognition Pakistan and India as a state of nuclear weapons. Why? Because India is, strategically, I think, checking the rise of China in the Asian region, and Pakistan has provided I think, battleground for fighting ISIS and terrorist groups, something like that. So North Korea is different dimension, and I don't think that as far as Washington maintains the military hegemony in the future in Northeast Asia, North Korea will never to be recognized as a state of nuclear weapons. I think we have to utilize this kind of I think military tactics from Washington.
Some people have raised concerns over the possibility of the North Korean nuclear threat to be routinized. What do you think is the biggest challenge to be tackled? What should we focus on the most?
Mm-hmm. It has been already routinized, and actually our government must tackle them with more effective means and with more realistic effort, not just an idealistic effort and talks, something like that. As we understand, through our six-party talks in the past almost 20 years, what's the result of the talks? More nuclear weapons, more nuclear tests. It has failed. So vague talks does not function effectively as we want direction to go on. So in the future, I think routinized North Korean nuclear threat will be only effectively, I think, checked, when we urge international community, more realistically, for example, talking to China, that really you should, sanction North Korea, sometimes even threatening to, I think, stop sending oils through pipeline to North Korea, something like that. Otherwise, North Korea will not listen to international advice, something like that. Since the North Korean nuclear test, the resolution 1718 in the year 2006, resolution 1874 in the year 2009, resolution 2094 in the year 2013, and the last one, 2270 in the year 2016. Well, United States and Japan and European Union members, not all the members, in the United Nations, member countries, but half of the countries only cooperated, submitting implementation papers, something like that. It means that our diplomatic tactics has failed to meet our full demands as we want them to be tackled down, something like that. So in the future, our government must take more realistic measures, talking with China's communist parties, Washington, Japan, European Union, in all multi-dimensional directions, I think. Otherwise, North Korea will be continuing to go like this. And what is the most important one in tackling these kind of issues is South Korean politics. You see, when we talk about deployment of THAAD on the Korean soil, we are divided, and some pro-North Korean groups are utilizing these kind of issues as a political propaganda. This is a huge mistake, signaling wrong sign to Pyongyang regimes. It must be stopped. This is a good answer, I think.
Mm-hmm. Probably same question to Mr. Kim. How do you think those routinization in South Korean society for the nuclear threat from the north?
Actually, North Korea's nuclear threat is becoming real and imminent. It's not in theory or in imagination. It is becoming real. And as Professor Park said, that I totally agree with him, because we don't question ourselves that whether we are having the right assessment of North Korea, whether we are wrong or being right now, because North Korea is always there. I think we need a remedy for ourselves, for our strategy. Are we having the continued unwavering strategy towards North Korea's nuclear threat? And are we using enough money, taking the right cost to divert change the North Korea's nuclear ambition, their course. We are having problem ourselves, so that is very important point. And also we need to find new ways and means to solve this problem. Can we break North Korea's will with force? Can we do that? Can we really do the preemptive strike in action, conduct that in action? Or are we utilizing all our possible means that we can do? We need to find new ways and means to do that, and also find new equations. Relying on Chinese, can we reach our goal? Is it possible to China? Do they have real leverage towards North Korea? I don't think they are having the real leverage, and I don't think they will use that until they become friends with United States. So I think that is very important assessment and equation. So denuclearization of North Korea equals North Korea's regime change. We need to find this equation, and we need to accept this one and try our best to achieve that.
If North Korea tries to have a direct transaction with the United States by listing itself as a nuclear state, probably South Korea might lose its ground in the region. What kind of strategies are needed for us to better deal with it?
I think that is the very ominous scenario, and it is described in the monthly magazine 현주소는, and they described the South Korea's fate due to the direct negotiation with North Korea and the United States. So I think that we need to prevent that. I think that we should not allow that direct negotiation between the North Korea and the United States. We are the kind of sovereign state, and we are the owner of the Korean Peninsula, and the dialogue or the negotiation should be conducted by South Korea and with the United States or the Japan and other countries. At the same time, I think that we need to strengthen our alliance with the United States. There are some anti-U.S. movement and anti-U.S. emotionalized people in South Korea. But if we want to make the North Korea to follow our proposal, I think that we have to see eye to eye with the United States. So strengthening our alliance may prevent the kind of direct contact between North Korea and the United States.
The same questions,
yes.
Professor.
Very important and very crucial question. If Washington has direct talks with Pyongyang for peace treaty negotiations, it means that this is our total diplomatic failure of North Korean policies. Such a tragedy must not happen in the future. And in order for us not to make that happen, I think our politics, national politics, must come to a normal situation. In our domestic politics, there are some people, some politicians who are saying that we need a national security law abolitions and unification through confederation formula. Also, something like that. Also, withdrawal of American forces from the Korean Peninsula, something like that. These kind of slogans and political propaganda is dividing people here and creating rooms for Washington to misunderstand Korean politics here. So more strengthening Korea-US alliance will prevent these kinds of worst scenarios from happening, I think. Also, such a undemocratic North Korean regime, I don't think this regime will be lasting longer time than we expect in the future. And nuclear weapons owned by this kind of undemocratic regimes, well, terrible scenarios in the future. So I think we also have to worry about whether the computer system in North Korea will be functioning properly. If there is a computer system mistakes, such a disasters on the Korean Peninsula. So all the, I think, emergency situations on the security issues around us. So these kind of scenarios must be prevented, and the basic conditions to prevent this kind of worst scenarios must come from the unity of people, not political divisions and such, mean politics in South Korea must be eliminated first, I think.
Probably you already mentioned in part in the earlier questions, but some people have raised concerns over the divided opinions within the political field, even when it comes to the national security issues. What do you think should be the top priority of the political field?
Well, it is natural in a democratic society to talk about politics based on diversities of opinions on economic policies and on some security issues. But look, the particularities of a Korean situation divided countries and surrounded by the four superpowers and threatened by North Korean dictatorship. This means that when politics does not function properly to take care of the particularities of the North Korean regimes, it means that more and more threat will be produced and ultimately threatening the lives of Korean people. And after fifth nuclear test, this has become a reality. So I think when politicians discuss security issues, they must put first priority on the security interest of people, not on the factional interest of a political party or a politician. That will spoil the Korean futures, I think. So this is a very important lesson that we have to learn from Vietnamese communization processes, that the politics division, their corruptions, and some spies from elite groups to help North Vietnamese people to invade South Vietnamese territories. We have to learn this, otherwise Korea will be, again, repeating the same tragedies. We must be careful not to repeat that kind of tragedies in the future.
I see. In the conclusion part, probably I can give you the final comment for each 1 minute. This time we can start from Mr. Kim.
Actually, in theory, the logic of NPT is that if one side is armed with nuclear arsenal, the other party will also try or will also be nuclear armed. So if we do not try the nuclear armament, that means that is against the logic of that. And also someday will come that many of the people will see us strange that they are not still nuclear armed against North Korea's nuclear threat. So, and also without maintaining the balance of power, we cannot keep war. We cannot keep peace. So we should try our best to keep this balance of power, and as someday, if needed, to become nuclear state.
I think balance of power has been broken on the Korean Peninsula in terms of military capacities, because North Korea is de facto nuclear state. CIA recognizes it unofficially, not officially. We recognize it unofficially. And in this grave situation here we are facing, it is a tragedy that there are many presidential hopefuls on the Korean soil that will happen next year, 2017. But I have never seen any presidential candidate talking about the serious problems of nuclear attacks from North Korea. And I think, presidential candidate must be equipped with this kind of security realistic concept. Otherwise, we will create another, unstable security dynamics on the Korean Peninsula. And as you see, many European countries, including Sweden and Switzerland, even though they have been peaceful country for the last 70 years since the Second World War, they are practicing anti-nuclear attack drills, and even they have constructed anti-nuclear facilities, something like that. what's happening on us, We are the most vulnerable country to nuclear issues in the future, but we are not even talking about this, And the politicians are ignoring this kind of a threat from North Korea. I ask all the politicians and the presidential candidate next year to raise this issue with more, I think, a realistic concept, from North Korea, I think.
Professor Park.
Yeah, to our the people, I would like to recommend to review the we that did in the 1970s for the self-defense. We raised a special fund to assist our defense procurement, and we even had some special tax for the defense. So I think that it may be kind of about time for our country to make that kind of special fund or a tax. And to the international society, I would like introduce the one part of the poem which written by John Donne. I think you maybe remember, "For whom the bell tolls." And the John Donne says in his poem that all the human being is that one part of the human society, and one loss may mean that a loss of my body. So I think even though there are many countries who may feel kind of a little disinterested in the North Korean nuclear weapons, it could mean that strong or the very kind of serious damage to human society. So even though we should take lion's share of the defense and deterrence of North Korean nuclear weapons, I think that the world society also try to participate in that and prevent the North Korea from going wild. If we allow the North Korea use or threaten the nuclear weapons, I think there could be a third world war involving China and the United States, even with the nuclear weapons. So I think that this issue is a very serious issue, and I think all society should be united to get rid of this as a symbol for the kind of humanity or unity of human beings on this earth.
Thank you so much for sharing your opinion today.
This program can be watched again on www.arirang.com. Please let us know your opinions and thoughts about Peninsula 24.